to the Most High, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, which in the ancient Hebrew is the Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders of GMS who taught us the truth by the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, who will be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel. According to scripture and prophecy, the elect will be 1/3 of the Israelites who in the last days will return back to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai to receive salvation, while the 2/3 of Israel who don't turn back to the Most High in time be destroyed with America. And that's all according to prophecy. So we back with another lesson through the mercy of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Lesson is going to be titled The Supreme Court Decision to Racially Profile and Target So-Called Latinos. Or I might title it Supreme Court Decision to Only Racially Profile and Target So-Called Latinos. And when we say so-called Latinos, that would be the northern kingdom of the 12 tribes of Israel, ranging from the Mexicans to the Native Americans to the Cubans, Guatemalans, Dominicans, etc., as we see over here to the right. And again, the title is the Supreme Court's decision to racially profile and target so-called Latinos. And why is this important? Well, I've been putting up this screenshot pretty much throughout the year. Trump's war on brown-skinned people. The Edomite created this. But what it really is Trump's war on the 12 tribes of Israel. Because what do you see? So-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, which Edomite created this picture and it perfectly matches up to the 12 tribe chart that we have. So again, the title, the Supreme Court's decision to racially profile and target so-called Latinos. We've been telling the people since the beginning of the year that Esau the white man is at war against our people, against the 12 tribes of Israel. And more particular, Esau the white man is waging war against the 12 tribes of Israel through the United States government, against our people. And so-called Latinos, Mexicans, whatever you identify as, if you ain't got the memo by now, the United States is at war against you and your people, against us all together, but they targeting y'all first. That's why at the beginning of the year, they started with the ICE raids and deportations, snatch you up from your jobs, snatch you out the hardware store, snatching you from the fields, snatching you from the construction sites, snatching you out of school, all in your communities, in your neighborhoods, deporting you, taking you who knows where, separating you from your families, harassing the women, women getting taken advantage of, children missing, people missing out the system. And then you get this. Again, the title of the lesson, the Supreme Court's decision to racially profile and target so-called Latinos. And this is going back to September. This is about a month old, maybe a month and a half old, this Supreme Court decision. But, people wait till they hear it, from the U.S. government for it to finally click. Like, oh, now you got some Mexicans that's responding to the Supreme Court decision. Now they all teary-eyed and stuff. Now they concerned and upset. Well, the American government has been at war, with our people, really the whole time we've been in America, but they really been coming down harder, since the beginning of the year. For a lot of people, it still hasn't clicked yet. But we're going to show a handful of videos, and then we're going to get into the scriptures. I'm going to try not to talk too much in between. But you see this title here, how the Supreme Court's latest decision clears the way for racial profiling during immigration raids. Now, we're going to make this a little bigger so we can see the words as he speaks. And this is a month ago, so this is relatively new. Now, check this out.
Issued a decision that clears the way for racial profiling during immigration raids and sweeps.
And they've been racially profiling during ICE immigration raids and sweeps anyway, because who's the main people they've been targeting anyway? So-called Latinos, so-called Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Mexicans, some Native Americans. That's what they've been targeting the whole time anyway. Bear with me.
The Trump administration rapidly expand the racially discriminatory ICE practices that we've already seen terrorizing families, workplaces, and communities around the country. Thanks to the Supreme Court, these raids are now more likely to sweep in U.S. citizens and people with lawful status. So what was the decision and what did it say? Well, in a 6-3 vote in the case known as Vasquez-Perdomo v. Nome, the Supreme Court granted an emergency request from the Trump administration to temporarily halt a Los Angeles judge's order limiting the use of so-called roving patrols. These patrols had been snatching people off of California streets and questioning them based on how they look, what language they speak, what work they do, or even where they happen to be.
So ICE has been targeting people based off where they at, what language they speak, and how they look. They've been doing that already, but the Supreme Court, gave the final say so that it's law, that they can legally do this now, based off what language you speak, the color of your skin, where you work at, or where you happen to be. If you in a place where Mexicans known to be at, that gives them right to come snatch you up. If you speak in Spanish or got an accent, that gives them right to snatch you up. If you work a job that Mexicans usually work, that gives them a right to come harass you and snatch you up. Take that back.
Patrols. These patrols had been snatching people off of California streets and questioning them based on how they look, what language they speak, what work they do, or even where they happen to be. Both the Los Angeles Federal Court and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals had ruled that these actions amounted to illegal racial profiling. But on Monday, the Supreme Court issued a brief, unsigned order that overturned those decisions. For now, this gives immigration agents a green light to once again stop anyone that they guess to be here illegally, even if a central reason for the stop was race. This endorses ICE and Border Patrol targeting any Latino they observe in Los Angeles, speaking Spanish or working in a low-income job, and then demanding their papers.
See that? If you speak in Spanish, or you work in a construction job, or a restaurant job, or a grocery store job, or any kind of job that Mexicans usually work, that gives ICE the right of way, the green light to come harass you, ask you for your documentation, and whether you got it or not, they can snatch you up.
Justice Sotomayor, one of the 3 justices who was race. This endorses ICE and Border Patrol targeting any Latino they observe in Los Angeles, speaking Spanish or working in a low-income job, and then demanding their papers. Justice Sotomayor, one of the 3 justices who dissented, raised a clear alarm in her dissent. She warned that the decision risks turning Latinos into second-class citizens. In her words, we should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost, I dissent. Now, crucial.
See that?
We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks.
See that? That's what the government is doing. They pretty much got the green light. They can snatch up anybody who looks Latino, or speaking Spanish, or got an accent, or work a job that Mexicans or Latinos usually work. But hold on, what about all the Chinese people? What about all the Arabs and so-called Middle Easterns and East Indians and Africans and Ukrainians, Russians, Koreans, Filipinos? What about all them that's over here? Why only the so-called Latinos? Because Esau, the white man, through the American government, is at war against the 12 tribes of Israel. And what's the war about? It's not to just further oppress us. It's not to just keep us in a low place. No, they really want to exterminate our people. Because when ICE snatch people up, these people disappear from the system. They dropping them off in the ocean, in the middle of somewhere. They got alligator Alcatraz, where they boasted in their heart's desire to feed the entire Latino population to alligators. They got nuclear powered incinerators. They got tens of thousands of guillotines they ready to roll out. They want to exterminate the 12 tribes of Israel. They no longer have a need for us as a people. They got AI, artificial intelligence. They got robots to do the work of low income workers. But let's get to the next video. It says this will bring Judah and Israel closer together. Israel will be forced to accept that Esau is the devil. And that's what Esau, the white man, is doing. He's showing himself to be the wicked, to be the devil. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the devil is being revealed. Now you see this Latina woman is all teary-eyed, because of this Supreme Court's new decision, which they've been acting on that anyway. They've been targeting people based off of race, based off where they work, based off the language they speak anyway. But all of a sudden, it goes into law. Now you're crying. Where was those tears at the beginning of the year? And see, based off you looking Mexican or speaking Spanish or having an accent, it's no longer limited to illegal immigrants. There's a lot of Mexican American citizens that look Mexican, that speak Spanish, that got an accent, but they're American citizens. So now they crossing that boundary that they no longer targeting what they will call illegal immigrants, non-US citizens. This is the green light to snatch up Mexican American, Latino American citizens. So none of the Latino population is safe right now. Your kids, your women, your elderly, y'all haven't been safe, but now y'all hearing it from the devil's mouth himself. And then again, what about all the Chinese people? What about all the other people that came up through the border during the Biden administration? Why is only y'all being targeted? Because this is the 12 tribes of Israel. And I want to mention this a few times throughout the lesson. Everything they doing to the Latino, so-called Mexican population now, and how they targeting them and racially profiling them, all that's coming to you so-called Black Americans, African Americans, Negroes, Haitians, Jamaicans, the Caribbean brothers. All this is coming to us next. But they always gonna start with the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Latino tribes of Israel. But let's get this.
For those that don't know, the Supreme Court ruled Monday for the Trump administration and agreed U.S. immigration agents may stop and detain anyone they suspect in the U.S. illegally based on little more than working at a gas station, at a restaurant, at a car wash, speaking Spanish or having brown skin.
Speaking Spanish or having brown skin, it don't stop there. Mexicans kind of dress a certain way too, especially, ones that work outside jobs. They may wear cowboy hats, cowboy boots, jeans, a shirt, a scarf. You're gonna be targeted based off of that as well. It don't stop there. We got another video that I showed about a week ago. If you wearing anything with American flag, Guadalupe, Mother Mary, whatever Mexicans worship in a idolatry, that's gonna be targeted as well. But let's continue.
That is all they need. If you
Let me take this back a minute.
in the U.S. illegally, based on little more than working at a gas station, at a restaurant, at a car wash, speaking Spanish or having brown skin. That is all they need. If you speak Spanish or have brown skin, you are in danger. My family's in danger. And we have to step up. We have to be the change. We have to spread the word. Make sure to keep your family as safe as you can. Let them be informed, and that's the best that we can do. But, yep.
What did she say?
The Supreme Court ruled this on Monday.
What did she say? That, so-called Mexicans are in danger. But the creator of this picture right here, I'm going to show you some audio that he said at the beginning of the year. His words are holding up very well. He gave a warning to the so-called blacks, Native Americans, and Latin Americans at the beginning of the year. Now check out what he said.
And if you are black, if you are Hispanic, if you are an American Indian, you better be worried. You better be worried. And
you see that? He said you better be worried. If you're Native American, black, or Hispanic. Now let's get this other audio. Check this out.
Overthrow birthright citizenship for Native Americans. Folks, if he can do that, then black people don't have a chance. If you're African American, if you're black, or consider yourself an African American or black, you don't have a chance. Because if he can deport Indians, American Indians, then you're going to be going next or become slaves.
That was in January. And look how it's turning out. So, hey, he was on point. We already knew this through the spirit by the understanding of the scriptures, but it aged very well. The warning been going out, whether it's through the ministry or rather it's other truth-speaking American people. The warning's been going out. And look how it's turning out for our people. And guess what? It's going to get worse. Then, he say blacks don't have a chance because a lot of Mexicans, they Native Americans. A lot of our identity was lost over time, but they Native Americans as well. Rather, they belong to North America, Central America, South America. So they treating the people who was in this land first, the Native Americans and Latin Americans, hey, blacks don't have a chance. So we next, but let's continue.
For the Trump administration.
What happened yesterday in the shadow docket decision was that the Supreme Court said that it was permissible, legally permissible in the United States of America to use racial profiling, to use accents, and to use race itself as a predicate for denying someone access to due process, which is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment.
So based off the color of your skin or based off the language that you speak, which just so happen to be Spanish, which is spoken by, so-called Latinos of South, Central, and North America, that they could be denied due process, which I think she said it's a 14th Amendment, but you losing your rights based off your ethnicity and the language you speak. Only to the so-called Latinos, though. No other, foreigner or stranger that's here in America.
Suspending constitutional rights for persons based on their race and ethnicity. There is no moment in recorded human history where you look at an autocratic regime where that is not an element of that regime.
Being detained in America for speaking Spanish or for being brown is now legal. Yes, that's correct. And that comes after earlier decision by the Supreme Court.
It's now legal, but they've been doing it before they made it legal. So whether something is legal or not, constitutional or unconstitutional, that don't matter. Because, they make the law, they do what they want. And when it comes to our people, we have no laws or no rights. We have no laws or no rights. So we got to get that through our heads. When they pass laws and rights, that's for white Americans. Because in the Constitution, so-called blacks only 3/5 of a human. So they don't even consider us people. That goes for you so-called Mexicans too, is what y'all finding out.
Where they issued an emergency decision in Non v. Vasquez Perdomo concerning Operation at Large, which deployed ICE agents to the Los Angeles area to places frequented by Latino people who may or may not be undocumented. This decision overturned a previous decision from a federal...
You're going to skip some of this, bear with me.
Issue a concurrence. Now, in his concurrence, he stated that the law allowed ICE to briefly detain an individual for questioning if they have a reasonable suspicion based on specific articulable facts that the person questioned is in the United States illegally. And they said that he further went on to say that ICE agents can use factors such as a presence at a particular location, the type of work that the person does, speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, and the person's apparent race or ethnicity.
Imagine that, speaking Spanish with an accent gets you snatched up by ICE. Well, I got a question. What about so-called black people that can speak Spanish? What about so-called black people that like to hang around Mexicans or be at the taco shops, like I do? So, yeah, we're going to take this back a little bit so we can see it again.
Location, the type of work that the person does, speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, and the person's apparent race or ethnicity. Now, this is absolutely crazy. The Supreme Court just sided with President Trump, allowing for racial profiling, allowing for immigration for ICE agents to detain someone simply for their perceived ethnicity. And notice that even Justice Kavanaugh said that they can detain people for speaking Spanish. So obviously they are targeting Latino people. They didn't say for speaking a foreign language. He specifically said for speaking Spanish.
That was the point. They said for speaking Spanish. They didn't say for speaking Chinese, Arabic, Korean, Russian. They said for speaking Spanish. Now my computer is heating up. It may move kind of slow. I may show a little bit of this. But check this out. Latina with Mexican flag on her car. Sworn by ICE. We showed the videos where they're going to target so-called Mexicans based off the color of their skin, based off their perceived ethnicity, based off them speaking Spanish or speaking English with a Spanish accent, based off where they hang out at, where they work at, what kind of food they like to get, where they shop at, where they live at. But I took it a step further and said they're going to also target them based off what they wear. Cowboy boots, cowboy hats, jeans and a belt, a scarf, anything with Guadalupe, Mother Mary, anything with the Mexican flag, or anything that look like it has anything to do with the Mexican heritage is all going to be targeted. So check this out.
Areas. Now, this one woman, ICE is looking for anybody, and they can profile. So this one woman has a big old Mexico flag on the hood of her car. Now, you would think that you wouldn't want to have that big Mexico flag on your car with ICE acting the way they're acting and they can racial profile. But I want y'all to watch what happened with ICE.
God damn it.
This is the quickest.
This nigga Esau, bro.
Clear up.
These damn commercials. You can kind of see the Mexican flag on her hood. You see the green, white, and red. Do you see ICE agents, men masked up, handguns, assault rifles, swarming the car? And it's just her in there. All this because you got a Mexican flag on your car. How else does this apply? All this because you wear a shirt with a Mexican flag on it. Or you wear a shirt with a Guadalupe on it. This same activity because you at a taco shop buying Mexican food. Then you get approached and harassed by some damn ICE agents.
What the fuck?
So all that, having a Mexican flag or appearing to be Mexican or speaking Spanish or having a Mexican accent might get you approached and detained by the U.S. government. And I'm gonna keep this on the screen while we get the scriptures, just to keep in mind what's really going on. It says this endorses ICE and Border Patrol targeting any Latinos. They observe in Los Angeles speaking Spanish or working in low-income jobs and demanding their papers. She warned that this decision risks turning Latinos into second-class citizens. And reality check, you're not even second-class citizens and never been. We the bottom of the barrel. We 3/5 of a human. Then when we go down here, it goes on to say, with ICE being given the green light once again to target Latinos. Out of all the people that came through the border, out of all the foreigners that's in America, all the countries America got beef with, Mexico is not one of them. But America got beef with Russia, China, Korea, African countries, all throughout the Middle East. Why aren't those people being targeted? That would be more of a threat to America. To answer the question, it's because they want to eliminate the 12 tribes of Israel. So now, with all that on the table, we're going to jump into the scriptures. So we're going to get the book of Micah chapter 2 verse 2. They covet fields and take them by violence. Yeah, they take lands, they take countries by force. That's by violence. It says, and houses and take them away. It says, so they oppress a man in his house. So, they oppress us individually, but it goes on to say, even a man in his heritage. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. So they oppress whole nations of people. And the nation that's most oppressed would be the nation of Israel, so-called Latinos, Negroes, Native Americans. But how do they oppress a man in his heritage? They oppress and target anything that look like it has to do with Mexican or Latino heritage. You're getting targeted for having Mexican flags or Guadalupe. You're getting targeted for speaking Spanish or having a Mexican accent. You're getting targeted for appearing to be Mexican. You're being targeted for dressing like a Mexican, for working jobs that Mexicans work, for shopping or eating where Mexicans shop at. That's them oppressing a man in his heritage. Everything about you is a target. And all of this also applies to so-called blacks, which is coming to them next, and that's going to be part 2 to this lesson. So, how do they go about oppressing a man in his heritage? How do they go about oppressing an entire nation? Well, to get that, we're going to come to the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, which we're going to get this in the NLT. It says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges? What's unjust, unfair, unrighteous, crooked, corrupt? Who are the judges in America? Mainly so-called white men, and those who issue unfair laws. You see that? Issue unfair laws. They deprive the poor of justice. Who's the poor? You 12 tribes of Israel. Because poor simply goes into not having the power to save yourself or change your situation. Poor goes into you being helpless, you being targeted, no one to save you, nobody to speak up for you. The law enforcement not being on your side. God damn it. Okay, excuse me, Lord. They deprive the poor, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, but for the sake of this lesson, so-called Latinos, they deprive the Latinos of justice and deny the rights of the needy among my people. We the needy. And what rights are being denied? The right to due process, your different constitutional rights, your different amendments, based off the color of your skin, based off the language you speak, what community you live in, where you work, what you like to eat, where you shop, what heritage you seem to display outwardly. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man in his heritage. So yeah, they pass unfair laws to target our people. They prey on widows and take advantage of orphans. Yeah, because families being separated, women being taken advantage of, children going into sex trafficking. But this widow and the orphan symbolically represents the 12 tribes of Israel. Why? Because an orphan, a widow, they don't have a protector. They don't have that male figure. And that's us as a people in America. We got nobody to defend us, nobody to protect us, nobody to speak up for us. But I want to make note of something. It says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. We say this word unfair quite a bit. That ain't fair. That ain't right. Well, this word unfair goes hand in hand with being unrighteous. Because when we get this in the KJV over here to the left, it says, woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees. So something being unfair is the same as it being unrighteous. Because again, our people will say, this ain't fair, this is unfair. It's actually unrighteous. It's a lot deeper and a lot worse than how we see it. Because things that's unfair, the Lord said, no, that's unrighteous. To wrongfully target and discriminate against a nation of people, his people, by passing laws that target, harass, and discriminate against them, depriving them of justice, taking away their rights. So that's how they go about oppressing a heritage and an entire nation of people. And now when we come to the book of Psalms, chapter 10, we're going to get verse 2. The wicked in his pride do persecute the poor. Who's the wicked? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Who's the poor? We discussed that it's the 12 tribes of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. So again, the wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Meaning what? target the poor. Let's go back to this article. With ICE being given the green light to once again target Latinos. That's them persecuting or targeting the poor. That's them persecuting the poor. Let them be taken in devices that they have imagined. So this gonna come back to haunt them. That's why the Lord said, woe to them. Now when we jump down, we gonna get 8 through 10. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. What's that? The cities. They be somewhere ducked off, masked up, trying to blend in undercover cars and rentals. They be in trees and bushes, trying to snatch up Latinos. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, in the secret places doth he murder the innocent. Yeah, they try to murder you in secret, say you missing. They can't find you in the system. They drop you off in the middle of the ocean somewhere. His eyes are privily set against the poor. Who's the poor? So-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. That's why they say, with ICE being given the green light to once again target Latinos. Their eyes are set against the poor. Their eyes are set against the so-called Latinos. These so-called blacks and Native Americans next. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. You see that? Scripture say he's like a lion in his den. Now let's look at this in the NLT. We'll go there in a minute. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. So what? They always camped out, lurking somewhere, trying to snatch up the 12 tribes. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. Now let's look at this in the NLT. Verse 8, they lurk in ambush in the villages. They've been ambushing the people, ambushing so-called Mexicans and Latinos, in the farms, picking strawberries. There's a video out there that has so-called Mexicans building a house or building a building or something. And when they got done building the building, the white man called ICE because he didn't want to pay the Mexicans. And what it was, the so-called Mexicans, they was on the roof. So when they finished the job and it was time for them to come down and get paid, ICE was waiting on them. So they stayed on the roof. Don't know for how long, but that's them lurking and ambushing in the villages, waiting to murder innocent people. That's the 12 tribes. They are always searching for helpless victims. Who's the helpless victims? The 12 tribes. Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. America ain't sticking up for you. Nobody there to defend you. But yeah, we're going to get this in verse 9. Like lions crouching and hiding, they wait to pounce on the helpless. Like hunters, they capture the helpless. So they hunting and preying on the 12 tribes. Verse 10, he croucheth and humbleth himself. So he's going to say, come to court. We're going to discuss your documentation. We're going to discuss your citizenship. Yeah, come to the doctor. We're going to do your checkup. Yeah, come to the food stamp office. We're going to discuss your benefits. That's him crouching and humbling himself. He's going to act like he's there to help you. That the poor, you so-called Latinos, may fall by his strong ones. That's his mighty men, his military. ICE is just a federal law enforcement subdivision of the military. That's why they got a military budget. That's why they're going to have military weapons next. So again, he croucheth and humbleth himself that the poor, you so-called Latinos, may fall by his strong ones. That's his ICE agents, his National Guard that's now being deployed, the military that's going to be deployed next. So moving on, we're going to get this in the book of Lamentations. This is 4:17, which we're going to get this in the NLT. And you so-called Latinos, y'all experiencing this right now. This is how we know y'all of the 12 tribes of Israel. We looked in vain for our allies to come save us. You looking for the Democrats to come save you. You looking for so-called white people to come stand up for you. You looking for, help in all of the wrong places. It says what? But we were looking to nations that could not help us. He saw the white man can't help you. He ain't gonna help you. He's gonna speak like he's for you, but he's not gonna put his life on the line. He's not gonna put his freedoms and his rights on the line to help a bunch of so-called Latinos. So yeah, we looked in vain for our allies to come and save us, but we were looking to nations that could not help us. Which in the KJV it says, as for us, our eyes as yet fail for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. Nobody's coming to save you so-called Latinos or you so-called blacks when the drama come to us. Check this out. Latinos experiencing this right now. We couldn't go into the streets without danger to our lives. Yeah, you can't go to work. You can't go to school. You can't go grocery shopping. You can't go get no food. You can't be out and about looking like a Mexican, speaking Spanish, speaking with an accent. We couldn't go into the streets without danger to our lives. Our end was near, our days are numbered, we are doomed. And so-called Latinos gonna finally come to that conclusion that you are doomed if you're not of the elect. And check this out in the KJV. They hunt our steps that we cannot go in our streets. How are they hunting your steps? Let's go back to this article. With ICE being given the green light to once again target or hunt Latinos. And how so? Let's go back up. This endorses ICE and Border Patrol targeting or hunting Latinos they observe in Los Angeles and really throughout all of America speaking Spanish or working low income jobs. See that? That's them hunting the steps of you so-called Latinos. Because see, a step, when you follow animal tracks, it's a trail that's going to lead you to the animal. So what? You speaking Spanish, you working Mexican-like jobs. You at the Mexican grocery stores or at Mexican restaurants. You speaking Spanish or got an accent. That's like a trail or steps that they're going to follow that they can target you. They hunt our steps that we cannot go on our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, our end is come. And then let me see. Check this out. Our enemies were swifter than eagles in flight. Who's that eagle? That's America. Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Yeah, because ICE, they swoop in. That's why you see the videos talking about ICE arrested and detained 400 Mexicans, 400 undocumented immigrants. It says, if we fled to the mountains, they found us. If we hid in the wilderness, they were waiting for us there. So yeah, so-called Latinos, they be hiding out. ICE agents already be there. And this goes to Isaiah 59:19. The enemy's going to come in like a flood. But yeah, so going up to verse 18, when it says, we couldn't go into the streets without danger to our lives. Yeah, your life is in danger, you being a Latino. Our end was near, our days were numbered, we are doomed. Yeah, and that goes into the book of Luke 21:20. When we go here, it says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then you will know that its destruction has arrived. Will Lamentations say we are doomed? Yeah, our destruction is coming. Who's Jerusalem? The 12 tribes of Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. And right now, we being surrounded by armies. That's why ICE is all throughout America, starting with the bigger cities. That's why the National Guard is being deployed to so-called democratic, so-called black cities. That's why the military is being deployed to so-called democratic cities. Jerusalem, the 12 tribes of Israel, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, we being surrounded right now strategically. They saying is to cut down on immigration and undocumented immigrants. They say it's to cut down on crime. No, it's to target the 12 tribes of Israel. And we're going to get into what this destruction is about. That the time of our destruction has arrived. Let's go to the book of Esther, chapter 3. We're going to start at verse 12. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. And there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, his officers, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language in the name of King Osiris, was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy. That's the destruction of our people. To destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews. In this lifetime, it will be all the Israelites, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, both young and old, little children and women, and one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month. So, the plot to kill all the Israelites in the book of Esther, nothing is new under the sun. That's coming back today. They want to eliminate, exterminate, kill, destroy all so-called Latinos, Native Americans, and Negroes, the 12 tribes of Israel. So that was really it. The war against the 12 tribes continues. More laws and Supreme Court decisions are going to follow to further persecute and target you so-called Latinos and Native Americans, and then you so-called Negroes are up next. So yeah, it's no longer about undocumented Mexican immigrants. If they can target you based off your skin color, your race, where you shop, what you work, you speaking Spanish, or you just having an accent, that has nothing to do with legal status. That has nothing to do with documentation. They getting ready to come full force against our people. You so-called blacks, African Americans, Negroes, we up next. So Lord willing, this is informative. Till next time, Shalom.